like a star.
Thank you.
Rolling it.
So, Joe, can you tell us what has happened so far today?
Well, the Minister's announced the loss of up to 75 jobs at Forest Products Commission and basically the gutting of what we call a share farming division of FPC, which was the work that was being done to plant trees in the southwest and support farmers in the southwest and provide an alternative industry, alternative resource industry to the timber industry in the future.
And what effect will this have on, I suppose, first of all, the individual workers and then the whole of the southwest?
Okay. There are... sorry, do you want to answer that again?
Yeah, so what effect will this have on individual workers and then on the whole of the southwest?
Clearly individual workers are going to lose their jobs. Many of those are in the southwest region. There are some based in Perth as well. Those workers will be offered a voluntary redundancy at this point in time, but the government's committed to introducing legislation this year which is for involuntary redundancies in government. So there's a concern for us that while they might be offered a voluntary redundancy now, in the future workers who want to find alternative work in government might be forced out. That has an impact for them and their families, and for example, the Albany office is going down to a couple of staff, where currently they employ up to 15. So in small regional communities there's a big impact on jobs.
So can you tell us about these specific redundancy packages, what the workers have been given?
The redundancy packages are a standard across government, so there's up to 12 weeks notice and then 3 weeks for every year of service, and they get paid their annual leave, etc. That depends on how long they've been with government, and it's a maximum of 52 weeks pay, so there is a cap. So if you've been with government for a long time, you don't get, for every year of service you get it capped. When those workers take a redundancy, they're then restricted from coming back to government to work, and they then have to try and find alternative jobs in the private sector.
Will it be hard for the workers to find new jobs?
In the smaller communities in the southwest, I think it will be very hard for workers to find new jobs, and what's important is that then means they might leave town, they might pull their families out of that town, so that clearly has an impact on the whole community in terms of workers living and working in that community and contributing to the local economy.
Do you think something different should have been done?
Look, this shows this government's short-term vision to the environment, of providing an alternative timber resource to the West Australian community in 30 years' time. What they talk about is the federal government withdrawing funding. What they don't say is that they also refuse to give extra funding to this agency to do the work for tree planting. The previous state government had, and they had jointly done a project around salinity and land degradation throughout the southwest. That was going to provide an alternative timber resource to the timber industry in the future. Now, they can only rely on the forest management plan for so long. At some point, if you don't start planting additional trees now, an alternative resource, then in the future you won't have trees. That'll see the loss of the timber industry in the future or more pressure on native forests. So what they're doing is setting up that conflict again into the future of Western Australia.
Just one question. These are voluntary redundancies, so there's no actual obligation to accept them. Is that they can they staff be put into other areas of the agency?
The staff will be offered the option of redeployment, but there's limited jobs in the agency. So if they're redeployed, they'll have to find another job somewhere else in government. If they can't find another job somewhere else in government, as I said, government are looking to introduce legislation to have involuntary redundancies, and they're committed to introduce that legislation by the end of the year. So while they're talking voluntary redundancies now, if not enough workers put their hands up and there's not alternative jobs in government, they will have a body of workers there who have no meaningful jobs, and they have said as a government their commitment is to then introduce involuntary redundancies in the future. So that legislation is due to be before Parliament by Christmas. So these workers, if they don't take voluntary redundancies now, could be forced out the door by this government given the commitments they've made around changing the legislation.
Good. Take the last one. You might want to zoom back out a bit now and just get a bit of a mid-shot. Joe just talking casually to Deb. No glass in frame if you can avoid it. Okay. Just as you were, just come back out a bit.
When you talk about involuntary redundancies, does that mean that you talk about that whole package that came in first?
We don't want Debbie. That's right.
they'd still get the package, but they
Okay.
wouldn't have the option of having a job in government. So the government would say, we no longer have a job for you, you have no choice, you can't stay, you have to go.
Oh.
So that's the legislation this government said that they want to introduce. So, I think that's the problem with the Minister's announcement, it's in the current legislation. But if they've got, if not enough people put their hand up and they've got like 30 or 40 workers sitting there, they've got no meaningful work for them, and they are having to pay those people a salary, and they change the legislation, they'll then be in a position to say, actually, you're no longer employed, you can leave.
And it's like I mentioned, it's harder for them to find a job. They're forced to get something elsewhere.
Yeah, and in small communities in the southwest, you'll find they'll probably have to leave. So.
And then obviously then the roll-on effect will be what happens in the southwest and areas around there.
Right, speak up.
To stick around, and you mentioned that the project has so much, I suppose, the effect is down the track.
And that's what's easy for the government to minister to make this decision now, because in 40 years' time, he's not going to be the person. He's not going to be in politics anymore. This government's not going to be in government anymore. And people will look back and say, what a lack of vision, but it's not important for them.
It's just like a short-term, seems like a short-term plan.
It is, and government often plans in 4-yearly election cycles rather than 4-year environmental cycles. So that's a bit unusual for them.
and then that's even, I guess, then you talk about climate change and environment. I don't know whether that was...
Well, I have to say, I've met with the Minister, and he's a bit of a climate change denier, so his idea about the coal thing, we ended up having a bit of an argument about.
Is that Jacobs?
No, Terry Redmond. Yeah, and what's interesting is it's all in his electorate, all his share farms. So he's got these 650 farmers sitting there going, and some of them we understand are people who are taking legal action against the government, they don't know the contract, so there's a whole lot of hidden stuff in this.
Nationals, what they know. Off the record.
Well, they should have, they could have been planting trees rather than doing county, Margaret would have done.
Well, under Gallup had spent millions on this agroforestry plan from I think Geraldton to Esperance back at the start of the decade. So I don't know what the fruits of that that sort of fared any fruit as yet. But I mean, and that was aimed at trying to get the whole plantation timber thing.
Yeah. And that's what they, unless you continue it, what you do is the work that's already been done becomes a lost resource, because it's not in big enough quantities at the moment for them to go in and harvest. So that's one, you can talk about this stuff for ages, but part of them pulling out means that the work that was done is actually going to become quite useless, because they needed to build it up even further to give enough mass for the timber industry to bother going into those areas and doing the roads in and doing the logging in and all this infrastructure that goes behind that. So you're actually going to lose the investment that was made.
So watch this space.
Yeah, well, look, I don't know that they're not going to change their mind on this. So really, it's gone. Unless there's a huge outcry from the community, and we've been raising this issue for months now, and I'm just not seeing that coming from anywhere. So we've raised it with.
You've got a regional breakdown, Joe, like you said about Albany from 15 down to 2, Bunbury.
I'll be able to do that. We only got the figures late yesterday, and
How soon can you get those figures to us?
I can try and get that done today and get it down to you.
Yeah.
Do you want to run it tonight on the story?
Well, absolutely. That's why we're here.
Yeah. All right. Well, who do we get back in contact if we get the figures?
Did Tiffany give you the call?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll get Tiffany to touch base with you, because we're doing it out of our Southwest Bureau today.
Right.
We're just doing a pickup for her.
Okay. Well, I'll get our organisers to sit down and work out all the different figures
That'd be good.
and confirm it, and I'll give her a call and let her know.
Great.
Okay. Cool.
We must go, but thank you so much for
Thank
joining.
you.